All right, welcome everybody. We've got two fellas here that I'm super excited to have a chat with. Adam Mitchell and Lance Doty with We Buy Houses Fast in Dallas. They're an investment company that right now operates in residential real estate. And also Adam Mitchell is a realtor of mine, works with the Gingrich Group, and so excited to talk with him about a few things. Adam, Lance, how's it going?
We're good. We're good. Thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
Of course, absolutely.
Do we have a name for the podcast room yet? This is pretty cool. I feel like it's like the boardroom or something.
The podcast room, no. Somebody has brought the boardroom. I don't know if it was you or not. I can't remember.
I don't know.
But the boardroom, but the podcast, Jacobus Podcast, man, I don't know. I was struggling with the names.
But the biz,
struggling.
I love that.
What's that?
I meant to call you the Jacobiz play.
Okay.
Love that.
Okay, so for nobody knows this, right?
Okay.
So I guess you saw that Instagram page that
we
I
have
created.
like 4 right now. Working.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I haven't figured out how to delete an Instagram page yet. So I deleted a Jacobusiness Facebook page. Right. So a little bit of backstory on that. The initial name of this was going to be a Jacobusiness podcast, right? Mm-hmm. So Jacobusiness, right? I was just looking at, what's the name's going to be? And I was struggling. I literally was trying to figure out a name for this for like 2 months while I had some podcast stockpiled. Couldn't figure it out. Then that hit, and I was like, oh, man, that's awesome. So I made a Facebook page. I made a Twitter. I made an Instagram. I made everything. I went to bed. It was like midnight. I went to bed that night, and I was like, that name is stupid. Like, I woke up, and I was like, that's so dumb. And the reason why I felt like it was dumb was because people have a hard time enough already saying Jacobus. Right. And then so Jacobusiness, like, I just felt like it got a little long, which is the one complaint I have about my company name, the Gingrich Group, is like, it's hard to say, right? We Buy Houses Fast in Dallas might be long, but that rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, it took us a while. We were buying fast houses. We were buying houses fast. I
had to say it 200 times before it actually rolled off the tongue.
Right. Well, ultimately, I was like, man, I'm just going to keep this simple. And it was actually, so for those of y'all that don't know, Rachel, Lance's wife, does my social media for me. And Lance came up with, or maybe it was Rachel, I don't know, came up with John Jacobus Company, right, for one of my little icons. Rachel. Yeah, and so ultimately I was like, dang, okay, that sounds pretty cool. And Lance was like, man, I really like how that, like John, I think it's alliteration, John Jacobus, you know, like how that sounds. Smith. Exactly. I didn't get that one ever. I think whenever we were in 6th grade, you probably said that to me like 10 times. But no, so ultimately I was just like, let's keep it congruent and let's keep it, simple, a Jacobus podcast. And who knows? A goal of mine is for people to know how to say Jacobus also versus what I got when I was younger, Jacobus, Jacobs, whatever. And so hopefully if this thing gets big enough, people will know how to say Jacobus. As vain as that sounds.
Is that the goal? That's the goal.
That's the whole goal. I don't care if it brings me any business or like whatever. It's just like just so people can say my last name right. That's great. But it was never like a huge deal. But as I got older, I was like, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I named the company the Gingrich Group, which is my middle name, which people are like, what?
I didn't know that.
Oh, I didn't know that. We were wondering where that came from.
Yeah, so that's my middle name, John Richard Gingrich Jacobus, and I went with Gingrich Group because I didn't want to be vain.
Where does that come from?
So one of my dad's friends, who is named John Richard Gingrich, is my namesake, and then they just slapped Jacobus on the back of it. Cool. Yeah, so it's cool. Okay. We didn't do that with our child as far as like give her a family name, but that's ours is kind of that way.
Okay,
yeah.
That's good to know because I thought it was just from left field. So that's
not.
Good to know that
I'm not like a big Newt Gingrich fan. Some people say that all the time. It's like, okay, I wasn't being political in that at all.
You're your own critic, like we all are, right? You're like
you're
critiquing yourself way harder than anyone else.
Absolutely. I mean, this is why it took me 2 months. It took me 2 months to come up with a podcast
almost with
name.
a headphone, just keep my hair back.
Yeah, I know, right?
We're all a little insecure.
Well, my head goes like this, kind of like a cone head, and so like the headphones like make it seem like it doesn't do that as much, or maybe it adds to it. I don't know, but I feel better about it. So same way. But anyway, so We Buy Houses Fast in Dallas investment group. Tell me, like, when did you guys start? Because I sold y'all's first flip, I believe.
First
Right.
flip, the first flip that I was involved in. Adam
Okay.
had done many.
Okay, yeah. So I sold the first flip that you guys were both involved in, and then Adam got in the business to be a real estate agent. Maybe a year and a half, 2 years after that. But so how'd y'all get started? How did y'all come together? Tell me a little bit about how We Buy Houses Fast in Dallas formed. See how that just rolled right off the tongue right there?
So real quick, I'll go through my backstory. So I started buying rental properties when I was 25. Which I'm 41 now, so that was a long time ago. I wish I would have bought 200. Unfortunately, I didn't.
Of course.
And so bought a few, took a long break, and came back to real estate about 3 years ago, and decided, okay, we need to get back into let's figure out how to flip a house right, because it was tough to do back when I started. And brought Lance in then, and we decided let's flip a house. My wife's got the design ability, so we had that part figured out. And so Lance and I started, I think we officially kicked it off about 2.5 years ago, actually buying the first house.
Yeah.
So that was actually
Bolivar?
summer 2016, a little bit longer than that.
Bolivar?
3.5 years ago.
Yeah, so actually it's been
Almost 4 years
ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, but that was like a year flip though, right? I mean, it took a while, or 8 months or something like
We
that.
made all the mistakes. That's probably a whole different podcast.
Yeah, for real.
But
so I guess
we bought in June, demo in July, and then we were trying to have it on the market October and hit every, so by the time we brought you in.
Move the mic a little closer.
By the time we brought you in was January,
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
so
think
time's
we
flying.
sold that January. You sold that January 2017.
Right.
So almost 4 years. Sorry.
Dang,
Let me go back.
I know, right?
So after that flip, we were going, God, this is painful. I love it, but it's painful. And really the biggest issue.
And then you saw,
during that
man, all the
process-
money's being a realtor, right?
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
This guy just shows up and cashes checks.
Right?
Yeah.
The big thing that we had to figure out is how do we find deals? And that's where we were kind of turned on to wholesaling. We actually bought that house from a wholesaler.
Right.
And I dove in, learned it, and we took on wholesaling from there. And that has been our main business ever since. So we still will flip a house. It's got to be a home run, but we'll flip, 2, 3, 4, 5 a year right now. We have some plans to maybe do more than that, but we really took on wholesaling from that and learned how to market and become a viable wholesaler. And that's what drives our business today.
So tell people, either one of you guys, what is wholesaling? Because y'all are the first investors I've had on here. So like people might not know what is
No
wholesaling.
one knows what wholesaling is. And I get to tell people about it every day, and hopefully I can make sense of it. But at the end of the day, wholesaling is basically just putting investors with motivated sellers. Investors do not want to spend the marketing dollars that we do for someone that has inherited a home to find them, for someone that is going through a divorce to find them, someone's in foreclosure to find them. We spend those marketing dollars. We go out, we see properties, we run the equations, the math equation that every investor buys a house based off of, right? An investor's always buying equity. So we have to run that equation. We buy the house somewhere between 60 to 75% of what it would be worth if it was in great shape. At that point, we have a contract for that home, right? As soon as I get that contract signed, I get in the truck and call my investors. Right. I know where they want it. I put a spread on there, and so I basically am selling contracts to homes.
Right.
And so investors love me because I'm bringing them deals at a discount. They're using their cash to buy equity and opportunity to make more.
Yeah.
I love them because I'm not having to close on the property.
Right.
I'm able to sell contracts at a really good spread, and then we move on to the next one.
Right. So on that, and we can just dive right into that, because you said you're not having to close on the property, but for y'all to get paid, somebody has to close, right? The end investor has to close. So how do y'all, in a world, and we'll get into this too, where because real estate can be a challenge for people to stay ethical, right? Mm-hmm. Like some people might have the best of intentions going into it, and then all of a sudden, like they start seeing, wow, I can make $20,000 if I do it this way, or if I do it the right way, I'm going to make 15, right? Or whatever, right? So how do y'all find y'all's buyers list, and how do y'all, one, ensure that they close, and then two, like they're doing the things that they should be doing?
Well, when we started wholesaling, we tried everything. Again, we're trial and error. That's what we do. Lance is in charge of all the acquisitions, dispositions, and I just kind of run and focus on all the back end and the marketing. And so we tried everything when we got started. We did all the different marketing techniques that people talk about. We would go out and try to find a house to buy up front and then go and try to source it to a buyer. And we figured out about a year into it that that's backwards, that we need to know what our buyers want first. And then we find them the deals they're looking for. And ever since we made that switch about a year and a half ago, it has just clicked with our business.
That's one of those things that's super tiny, like a small tweak in the grand scheme of things. And think, oh man, that's not, find what they want first before you go find the house.
Right.
It's totally backwards thinking, but it's exactly what we needed. I don't know if that's for everybody, but that's what propelled our business forward. And we knew, okay, if our investors A, B, C, D, and E want this, this, and this, and we find that for them, there's a very, very good chance they'll close. And so that's what we do today. That's exactly what we do.
So now you know what they want, so they'll close, right? So that answers that question. But that also says, you talked about marketing. Okay, where do we need to market to, right?
Exactly.
Also, right? Like, do we want brick homes? Do we want homes with siding? Do we want, homes built in the 60s, or do we want newer homes, so you can target those neighborhoods?
That's been the in terms of the marketing, been the kind of, once we decide, okay, let's work it backwards. Let's find out what our investors, let's create the relationship with our investors, find out what they want. And that's mainly percentages. Does he want this thing at 78% of its after repaired value? Or is he willing to go up to 81?
Right.
Because he runs business pretty lean, he's good at flips, and he doesn't mind making a little bit less than some of my other investors, right?
Right.
But after we did that, we started channeling, the marketing. Okay. And everyone, whether you understand wholesaling or not, the best way so everyone can relate on this podcast is the We Buy Ugly Houses billboards. Right. We've all seen. Everyone's seen that. So that company is Homevestors. They're big national. There's a couple other big nationals like OfferPad. And then there's some great locals, right, that are just as big. And we have, a starting business. So a starting business marketing budget, right? We can't flood your house with 100 postcards. And hope you see one of them when you make, we can't afford to do that.
Right.
And so we've had to really target our marketing to what we do well, and kind of like, exist being a small fish and just hope that we can create the relationship and offer a level of quality and transparency that no one in the space really does.
Right.
And that's been the game changer. Like, everyone sees at the red lights, we buy houses with cash. That's our business, right? It's not sexy, right? And those signs get put down every Thursday night by somebody, and the city picks them up Monday morning. And
not us, by the way.
And we've done that. We've ran across streets at 3 a.m. putting signs up in North Garland. And
But y'all,
we tried it and it doesn't work.
It doesn't work for us.
For you, like,
for us.
because there are people that, like, at scale, they do that, like,
all day long.
All day long, they put down zillions of signs, and that's their marketing budget, right? Or that's their marketing, right? Versus the postcards versus digital versus
that. When you think of how grassroots that marketing is, that goes back to what wholesaling is and why we exist as a middleman, right? Is investors do not want to do that. They would much rather pay $15,000 to $25,000 more for a property and let me cross the street at 3:30 in the morning and have that person call me,
right.
And so that's kind of where we fit in. And so in terms of the marketing, it was really tough at first because Adam and I are just super sincere guys. That's anything I know to do in business and in life is just be honest,
right?
And if it loses me a deal, then we'll go get the next one who appreciates honesty. And at first that was really hard because we had no reviews. People didn't know us from anything. There was no way to really research us. To understand, okay, these guys are a little bit more quality, and there was no way to separate ourselves from some of the people in our industry that don't uphold a level of integrity, right? And so we are on the backside of that now. We're seeing, hey, I've done my research. I called in 3 companies, and every one of them we're up against other wholesalers that are doing a good job too.
Right. So what's something in your world that makes you shady or makes you to where you're like just scratch your head a little bit, or you're not doing that homeowner right? Because in a way, like, some people will look at just the fact that you're taking a house at a discount as like, okay, well, they're ripping people off. Not the case in my mind, right? Some people can say, oh, you're getting a house at a discount, like you're doing people wrong. Well, in my mind, you're helping them out, right? You've got somebody that's in a tough situation where, And this is where you're saying honesty and integrity, because y'all tell them, right? Like, I get that you're in this tough situation. This is what we can do for you. And what I've appreciated about y'all versus some of the others is like, y'all show them the data, right? It's like, hey, here's the numbers. And so, but what are some things that y'all see that people don't do, right?
Well,
that they should be doing?
Yeah, a lot of people they'll get a house under contract and that number will be not realistic, and then they'll come back and renegotiate it lower.
Right.
And that's a tactic. We see it every week. And we just are not willing to do that.
Right.
It's not the right way to do it. You know, you're basically you're putting a phantom contract out there with the seller, giving them hope, and then you're going to come in and renegotiate it.
Right.
And you're already down that path. So a lot of times they will take that, but it leaves a bad taste in their mouth, and we will not do that.
Right.
That's not ethical. It's not good business. You know, if you know you can buy it for X, you need to buy it for X. And you need to be willing to close on that property if you can't move it.
Yes.
And that's what most, small time beginner, whatever you want to call those wholesalers, will not do.
Right.
And, we got into a situation where our numbers were off on one last year, and we ended up buying the property.
There's not there might be a handful of wholesalers in a sea of 250 that we are up against in Dallas-Fort Worth that can actually have the capital to close on a property after they've overbid it.
Right.
And
right.
Ours wasn't a deal where we misled anyone. We have this awesome property right off Lemon Avenue, right behind the Porsche dealership in Dallas.
Oh yeah.
You've been there.
Yeah, Pete works there, by the way.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
I know which one you're talking about.
Versailles. And
yeah.
I mean, the comps are out of this world. I mean, you've got $1 million. Next door neighbors are both $1 million. This thing could be whatever you want, but it was just across the street from another school district. No one could comp it.
Right.
And so when no one can comp it, the banks won't comp it, and then all of a sudden it's not worth what we all know it's worth.
Right.
And so we just bought it, and now it's a great rental for some college kids. So in SMU. So and one day that'll be a big flip for us. The other thing, and what I'm going to try to do in this podcast, John, is people still don't understand everyone. No, not many people understand why you would sell a house at a discount, right?
Yes.
And one of the ways I try to explain it to people who have no clue why you would do that, in addition to the We Buy Ugly Houses example, is we've all been to grandma's house, right? Or you've had a friend that had a grandma, and you go, and it's this sweet old lady who's sitting in a recliner that they probably built this house in the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever, and nothing's been done to it, right? It kind of stinks. It needs completely updated. Foundation's a little wobbly.
Yeah.
It's not ready to put a sign out front because it's grandma's kind of old rackety house, right?
Right.
And so she's going to a nursing home. Something happens to grandma. Now the family has the home. What do? Right? The house can't be put on the market, right? Yep. Someone needs to put $30,000 in this thing to make it worth what the neighbor's house looks like.
Right.
And that's a scenario where you would call someone like us, make a cash offer to see, okay, is it worth us putting the $30,000 in? If us putting $30,000 in to fix grandma's house only nets us an extra $30,000, well, hey, this cash offer is great from Lance and Adam, right? We all walk away, we net the same amount of money. And one of the things we do to bring it back to the integrity side is we'll show you, hey, you put $30,000 into this thing, the neighbor just sold for $550. We could net you guys about another $160,000. You could net yourself that if you put that money into it. What decision do you want to make?
Well, and that goes into kind of y'all's business model is, you have Adam, who is a licensed real estate agent that can assist in that type of thing, right? And can assist you with the sales. So it's kind of a dual threat. I don't want to get in that necessarily now, but on the integrity side, there's a lot of people that just don't want to deal with it either, right? It's like, okay, well, I live in New York. My mom lives in Dallas. And she unfortunately passes away, nursing home, whatever, or just needs to come move in with you up there in New York. What do you do with this house, right? Do you want to go through the trouble of listing it, yada yada, fixing it up, whatever, or do you just like, hey, let's get rid of it, let's move on, and let's be done with it? And that's where I do think investors have a place in the market. There's no doubt about it.
It's a very small niche, and if there's 100 houses on a block, there may be one that fits into our niche where we can actually help them. The other 99 are not.
Right.
It's more of a retail opportunity for them. So, most people don't understand that we're not talking about the broad majority of houses. We're talking about 1 to 5% of the houses in Dallas-Fort Worth that may need our services.
Yeah.
And that's where we live.
Yeah. Which there's a lot of people. There's the competition in y'all's world, in my world and y'all's world is
It's fierce.
Fierce.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people doing
There
that.
is.
So let's talk about retail versus wholesale. We've touched on it there. How do you know when you're like, man, this thing really needs to go retail, or this thing really like it's a good opportunity for a wholesale or for an investment? Like, what's the thought process on y'all's end? Why you would say, yeah,
Why
this is
don't
a
I give
retail
yesterday's
play?
example?
Yeah.
So I'm not a licensed realtor, so I have to be
Right.
super careful when I'm out seeing properties and
Right.
just kind of go alongside them and make sure they know I'm not a realtor. But I went and saw this real neat home yesterday in Oak Cliff, and we all know what's happening to Oak Cliff, not just the Bishop Arts area, but Oak Cliff. And I'm at Keast and basically 35 in this pocketed neighborhood, beautiful 100-foot trees, remind me of Glenbrook, Duck Creek area a lot. And so this lady, she's moving in with her mother to take care of her in North Richland Hills, has this beautiful home she's had for 20 years, and just doesn't want to deal with people seeing her house, and the whole COVID thing's a little tricky, And so she wanted to just start with a cash offer. Great. Calls us, read about us, tried to introduce Adam, and of course now we're at the point where social media is impacting us, our reviews are impacting us. So she goes, "Oh, I know Adam. I watched some of your videos." I think this lead came across via some one of Rachel's Facebook ads that we've been doing. So she knows about us, and so that was cool. And so that's new for us. So I go and we walk in. It's a super cool little bungalow. It's a 3-2 bungalow, big trees, and big lot. And I'm used to half the time we're in South Dallas in Fair Park, so I see a nice house. I'm like, oh man, this is sweet.
Yeah.
So I walk up, and it's just a nice little home. She's done a lot of upgrades. She's put in the recessed lighting. She upgraded her bathroom in 2018. And so at this point, I have to kind of pivot, right? Like, this is a nice home. And keep in mind, when people don't understand the wholesale business, they don't understand I'm going to offer at max 75% of what your home is worth.
Right.
If your home is in perfect shape and worth $100,000, the most I can pay for it is $75,000. Right. And so I have to balance offending people half the time.
Yeah,
for sure.
And
Right.
explain why that is.
Well, why that is because that is the equation at which investors are willing to invest their bag of cash for equity.
For a profit.
For a
Just
profit.
They gotta make a profit.
So we give that equation to people. Like, a lot of investors go by the ARV, after repair value, minus 70% of the property or of the value of the property, right? Then you take out repairs as well. Like, if it's $15,000, so a $100,000 house, I can pay $70,000 for it if I need to do no repairs, right? And I just give it to somebody. But there's $15,000 worth of repairs on that, so I'm going to take $15,000 off that offer too. So I'm going to make you an offer of $55,000.
Yeah, right.
Essentially,
So,
that not every time. You said sometimes 75%,
Sure.
but I hear a lot of 70%. But that's the equation.
Yeah,
right.
that's the
and
equation.
the reason why so here's what you're giving up. You're giving up some of your equity for me to bring my bag of cash and drop it on your doorstep.
Right.
And obviously, if I'm going to do that, I've got to turn that into some sort of profit down the road. It's
course.
a business, and we're doing this for business, and that's the reason. So for me to use our bag of cash, we are going to make a profit on it somewhere down the road, whether it's rental or we flip it, whatever it is, and that's the trade-off. So it comes very easy, but you're taking a discount on the equity. That's the difference.
Right. So keep on going.
So on this example, it's the house isn't done. The master bath is still all original, and so we're in a spot to where it's okay. Let's give a discount. We can still sell this house fast, which is why she found it. She wanted to sell her house fast, and she searched that at some point. So now I pop up on her Facebook feed for 2 weeks.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we can still sell the house fast in a retail setting, right? But you can still offer a great discount in a retail setting, right? And you don't have to give up 30 to 35%, right?
Right. Sure.
And so in that scenario is when I get Adam involved, and I kind of explain to the seller, yes, you probably do need to redo that master bath to get full value, or we can just offer a $4,500 concession at sale price,
right?
And let the next owner make that decision on what they want that bathroom to look like. And at the price point of this home, we were looking at after repaired value about $185,000,
right?
Which that's about as cheap as a home as you can buy in Dallas-Fort Worth,
for sure.
And so that's the exact point to pivot for me. So I've seen it's a clean house. It can be lived in tonight. It is being lived in,
Right.
A family would love to take it as a blank canvas, and there's no reason to take a 25 to 35% discount.
Sweet.